Hello everybody, welcome to GT Planet, welcome back to our YouTube channel, and welcome to another interview with the wonderful Guy Barbara, who joins us this weekend, or this week I should say, for the next of our instalments of our interviews, the drivers that we're speaking to, the wonderful people from the world of Gran Turismo. Guy, first off, how have you been? How's it all been since Montreal and the first event of the GTWS season?
First off, hello guys. My name is Guy Barber. As you know me on the PlayStation as OP Twitchy. Yes, since round one, it's been good. I think on the day that I returned, I probably slept a lot from the jet lag. But yeah, it's been good to kick off the 2024 season over in Montreal with round one. Had a few ups and downs, but we can get into that in detail a bit later. But yeah, it's been pretty good. How are you guys?
We've been all good, trying to just keep up to speed with everything. Andrew's been, I was going to say tearing his hair out, but it's a bit more difficult for him.
It was so bad.
It's been pretty busy though, hasn't it, Andrew? There's been a lot going on this time round and a lot of exciting stuff to look at.
Yeah, because I mean the big thing. Aside from the racing, obviously, apologies. Coming out of Montreal was the announcement of the next update for GT7 1.49. Obviously, we've seen the return of the Eigenord on track. 6 new cars, some of which people are more excited about than others, and this much vaunted new physics, which merited about half a second of screen time in the trailer, and I think it's the one that people are most interested in. And we know that the drivers themselves at the event were using the new physics on the game, so we're particularly interested in chatting to Guy about how the game feels after this new physics update.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things we wanted to touch on, really, Guy, is when did you guys find out that you were going to be using the new physics, and what did you think of using them there?
Yeah, so the new physics was announced in the driver briefing update that we got. So we get that at about, it's probably some kind of insider scoop. We get this about a week, sometimes 2 weeks in advance of the actual event from the day we fly out. Probably a bit different for, like, I think people in Europe and NA kind of get a bit more time, like an extra day or so. Obviously, being from Australia, I have like a longer flight, so I think they get a bit more practice time. But yeah, it's normally about 2 weeks or about a week in advance of the day we fly out for the event. So we get a bunch of time for that, and then that was on the driver briefing document saying, there's going to be some new physics. Didn't really go into detail about what it was. It just said it was a new suspension model. Didn't say what it actually affected in the game, how it felt, like if the cars were more oversteery, understeery, or anything. Just said there was new physics, and everyone go for gold with your brains and think about what it actually could be different. But yeah, so just a few words, and that's it, and we have to kind of ponder the rest.
I was going to say, I didn't know if they would highlight any specific components that had been changed, whether it be the tyres, suspension, whatever else. If there was anything that you were told ahead of time that you could then keep your eye on. So it was quite vague instructions, was it?
Yeah. So the only thing that they said was the suspension model has been changed. But just saying that kind of leads to a few things. Then it could be suspension, the tyre heating, the tyre wear, all those different things that kind of connects the suspension in the car, what affects it in the car. Obviously, being the tyre, suspension, how it takes curbs, how it turns, the general pitch of the car and whatnot. So not just suspension, probably every aspect that kind of goes into that.
Yeah, it's quite a knock-on effect from stuff like that, isn't there, I suppose?
Exactly,
it's a very important component. It's one of the main things that connects the actual car to the road.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was the right time to implement something like this when they bring in new physics like that straight ahead of an event? Because obviously a lot of people see you guys as the sort of benchmark when you're in these competitions. So do you feel that it's a good thing to have you guys test them out on a big stage like that first, or was there a bit more pressure added because of that?
I think it probably is a good thing for us to test it out. Obviously, people see us as like the pros and all that stuff, I guess. So, if they give it to us and they can get more feedback and see how it can be pushed to its limits, kind of thing. Because I think if you just kind of release it and give it to just the general player base, they may have like a negative response to it. But if you put it in the pro scene and be like, oh yeah, these guys are going faster than what they have been previously, because that was a side effect of this is that the cars were on average, I'd probably say about half a second faster now on like every kind of combo that we did.
Right.
So if the general player base see this, everything's faster. Obviously, everyone wants to go faster in general. So if they see that the pros are going faster, then it'll probably be a bit more of like a positive kind of response from the general player base.
And it's interesting to note that you just get told that this is happening. You don't get a preview build of the game like some of the other esports, like F1 esports. I know they have a special build for the esports events. You don't actually you just get told there are changes. You don't get to try it out at home in the safety of your own rig for a little while first.
For our side, yeah, we don't get to test it. We went over there. So like all the training we did at home kind of went out the window when we arrived, because we got there and the whole physics were different. Like I got a few times from said staff member that the times were going to be faster. So everything I was doing at home was probably not going to be kind of worth it in terms of practice, because we got there, we got about an hour practice for the Manufacturers Cup, and then to practice the new physics on the GT3 model, which is probably the most common model that gets used on the game. It felt entirely different, and then the tire wear change, which changed our strategy and all that stuff. So we had about an hour to put that into play and try and think of something for the race, which I did for the Manufacturers Cup, and then also for the Nations Cup was really different. It changed the whole aspect of it, and yeah, we had about 30 minutes for that to kind of work from scratch and figure out the tire wear and figure out all that stuff. But yeah, we didn't get anything from home, so we practiced a lot just trying to get like a lap time reference, and then we told that it was faster, so then we had to go in there and just kind of send it, as you would say.
Yeah, so I mean, you actually had a pretty good Manufacturers Cup. I think you were just off the podium in the AMG, but I think I mean, we saw on the stream, we didn't get a replay, and some of your subsequent comments that you didn't actually enjoy the Nations Cup all that much. Can you kind of let us into what went right in Manufacturers and what went wrong in Nations?
Yeah, so for the Manufacturers, I'll touch on that first. That was probably my best performance on an asphalt track. I think my last best performance was on snow at Lake Louise in the Repechage last year for TGR. So yeah, that was on snow, so that was a bit at an advantage for people who didn't practice that. But yeah, so my best performance coming forth on an asphalt track. So I was really happy with that. I managed to put it on to P2 and then down to P3 right at the last second with Porsche. So happy to be on the top 3 for qualifying. I think the physics made the AMG a very good car. So close to it that what's his name? The other GT driver, 2019 champion Mikael Hazal, actually was going to pick that car to win as the prediction. And I was like, oh wow, so that kind of put a bunch of hope in me that my car may be up in the top five kind of manufacturers that are here today or at the event for the new physics. So that was my kind of my motivation for that. I drove in the practice sessions and had a pretty decent time at the end of it. And then we went to the qualifying, and I was just hoping to not kind of bin it or anything. I saw a few people who because I was third or fourth last to go, so there was about 8 cars before me that had times on the board, and I kind of seen a few people were making small mistakes and not getting their right lap in, and I did practice at home, so I knew what the lap time standards were, and then I thought, if the cars are going faster than that, I should be able to go faster than what I did at home, which at the time was faster than what the quality times that had been set at the event. So I kind of had I didn't have as many nerves going into my lap, because I knew that I could do faster if I just kept on the road and just focus on what I did at home and just hit my markers, hit the apexes that I need to hit. Have a bit of oversteer apparently in the lap as well.
Yeah, we saw that too. Was it turn 6? Little slide.
Yeah, so I thought that I had the oversteer, and I was like, oh, I think my heart rate went up about 20, 30 BPM. But in that moment, as a pro driver, I was speaking to my teammates about this. I said, in that half a second that I was having the oversteer, I have to think about, hey, I'm oversteering. Hey, I've got to catch this, but I can't catch it too much. I have to try and keep the momentum. I'm going to focus on the exit of the corner, but I also need to set up the next corner. So in about half a second, I've thought about 4 or 5 different things, and I'm just kind of put into play there. And to help save that moment, I just thought, I'm just going to help that moment and then make sure I hit my apexes for the next part of it. It ended up being a very good lap. And then in the race, I couldn't really keep the Honda behind me, because, as we know, Gallo plus the Honda is a match, just a match made in heaven, basically. It's a force you can't be reckoned with. But yeah, so I didn't want to hold him up, especially being a teammate with him now, as I changed from Distinct over to the Italian team OP with Gallo. So I didn't want to like hold him up. I wanted to let him pass and hope he could fight for the win, which he could have. I think Igor just made a better call on the strategy. It did enough to stay in front, so it was a very tight battle. But yeah, I wanted to give Gallo the chance to get the win as a teammate, whatnot. Even if that meant not being on the podium. I thought maybe later on he could drag me up to the front. The same with the Porsche. When I let him bother, he could probably drag me up to the front, guys, and hopefully have a battle for P2 and 3. But just 2 seconds off that, and yeah, probably didn't make the right strategy call. I probably could have pitted a bit later on my second stint, and probably gained another second and a half on them just because of the soft tire. Because I had probably another 2 laps, maybe 2.5, maybe 3 laps maximum, probably 2 laps to be safe, in me with the tires to actually gain on the hards. But I was a bit concerned about about the tires going off too early or too late or whatnot. So I didn't want to lose 5 seconds rather than trying to gain a second and a half. So I kind of pitted early, but I think I pitted probably 1 or 2 laps earlier, too early. And if I pitted a bit later, I would have been in the fight for the podium. But that's just the choice you make on the day and in the moment. And that obviously netted me a P4, which I'm happy about. Obviously, I would have liked to be on the podium. It would have been my first podium, my first trophy and silverware taken home from this, which probably would have seen a very emotional person on the on the step of the podium, and probably doing a shoey if I did that as well. So
you took the words out of my mouth. I was actually going to ask you if you would as well. I'm not sure if it's just an Australian connection to him or what, but
I think it's just an Australian connection. So if I went on the podium, probably would have seen me cry and do a shoey. So it's.
Well, you want to promise for next time, then?
I was going to say, you've set the precedent now. This is in public domain now. That's
exactly. So if I'm on the podium, watch out for me. I'll probably have a whole bubble of emotions.
Well, it's good to know that emotion's there, though, because that's the thing. I mean, it's something I've always wanted to touch on with pro drivers like yourself, that you sometimes see in esports and at the top level of competition like this that drivers will cross the line after a result, and they could have won a race, for example, and what comes with it, you could win thousands of dollars, for example, and just be completely stone-faced. Do you think that comes down sometimes to being so in the moment and so focused, or is it just that they don't want to give anything away? Because we love to see like emotive reactions from drivers and see that it means stuff to you. So do you know where that might come from when drivers are like that?
Honestly, I'm not sure because I haven't been there myself yet.
Fair play.
But I think it could be from drivers who kind of know their place in a way. Like we've got drivers like Jose Serrano, we've got Takuma Miyazaki, we've got Igor Farga. They've been on the top step probably more times than what I would ever kind of wish for. So I think in a way they're kind of used to it. Obviously, you do get excited and happy when you win and all that stuff, but you've been there 12, 13 times, you kind of be like, well, this is the spot that I expect to fight for. So if you come like second or third, then you kind of think, I should have won that race. It's the same for me when I'm doing my online qualifiers and just any race in general. It's like, if I know that I could have won but I made a mistake and I came second or third, I am not happy with the second or third. It's just in the blood and in the heart of it, us kind of races that like we race to win. We don't race to come second, basically. So, it's a mistake and we come second. We're like, well, we could have won, happy but not happy. Like it's the same thing. Like if that race I came P2 or P3 because I fought with the Porsche or the Honda, just for the sake of the conversation. And then Igor was like a second away. We're like, if we didn't fight, we could have won. So I'd probably get choked there and be very kind of emotive, but I would also be upset that we couldn't have fought for the win. So it's just in the heart of the races, really, on what we do.
Yeah, and I suppose it's relative to performance, like you say. You could have finished in second and it'd be an amazing battle, and that'd be more rewarding than finishing second and just not quite finishing first. So
exactly.
It makes sense, really. I suppose it's another highlight that the cars and the actual venues that we're at may not be as real as the real thing, but the emotion of it and what actually goes into it very much is, isn't it? Exactly.
Yeah. I think for me, just because from my kind of background, I've been doing gaming for as long as I can kind of remember, probably a decade or so. I started when I was a kid next to my dad with the controller in my hand on GT1. So it kind of goes back a
So
good
old.
20. It kind of goes back a good 20 years. Being 27 right now. Kind of goes back a fair way. Since GT1 got released probably 26, 27 years ago. So yeah, it kind of goes back a fair way for that. Not trying to stab you in the heart, but
Oh, it just makes you realise, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How far we've come, eh?
I started
Yeah,
playing
so
Horace Goes Skiing on the ZX Spectrum in 1982.
Oh my god.
Yeah, before I was even born.
Yeah, and me, yeah.
Yeah,
Andrew's taking
just for
himself
me-
to another level here.
yeah. Just for me as well, because I've obviously doing gaming for a long time. For a fair few years previous to now, I've always wanted to be considered a professional in a game, to the point where I spent countless of thousands of hours playing. What's the other game? What's it called? Locker League.
Oh
I've probably
yeah.
spent
Yeah.
I've spent about 5,000 hours playing that, to the point where I was kind of on the fringes as a bubble player back in 2017 or so. To be up there on that kind of pro scene. But the amount of hours you needed to put into that game, and then obviously it wasn't the most kind of a lovely game in terms of people being toxic, and if you weren't the
Yeah.
best, then
Oh man.
then you were shit. So I kind of was like, nah, stuff that, whatever. And then I did GT, and I found out that I was actually pretty quick in this, and I was like, oh wow, okay, so I think I can make something out of this. And now that I've actually done something out of this, and I'm up here with the professionals and traveling the world with it, there's a bit more hunger now to get a podium, just to get some silverware, just to show that hey, I actually belong here, and I did this, and I didn't just get there by a fluke and just kind of run around at the back. Like, I'm here to compete, I'm here to win, and all that stuff. And I think I definitely showed that in the Manufacturers Cup over there in Montreal. So yeah, I think that's just my goal at the moment, is to get just some silverware, and I'm sure if I do that sometime, I think my next goal will be to win a race, and then to get a first place trophy, and then after that probably to win a world championship. But obviously that's a lot easier said than done. But yeah, I think we got close to it in round one a few days ago. So as heartbreaking as it is, I did also have a goal for myself to get sixth or above, just to get points for round two. Because being a part of a team, you don't want to do your first round and go home with nothing, and we'll be like, well, I tried and I got nothing back from it. So I'm glad that I came home with fourth, as close to the podium as it is. I still got a few points to take over into round two, and to look for the bigger picture for the team, to get points in each round, and then hopefully the world final we can do something good, and maybe one of the top three teams can have a fall off or anything, and that would put us up into a podium spot at the end of the year. But yeah, I think that would be the ultimate goal for me, is just to get on the podium at the moment.
Yeah, it's all progressive, isn't it? One goal after the next, and build
It
up
is,
and up, and you build your confidence with that on the way up as well. So it's about gaining momentum. You mentioned earlier on specific cars, the Mercedes in particular, being strong because of these changes. I was wondering whether there would be certain types of cars, whether it be front engine cars or mid engine, even rear engine as well, that benefit from these physics changes more. Has there been any sort of insight to that yet? Because obviously with Group 3 or GT3 racing, there's such a variation in drivetrain types that there will be certain cars that maybe do benefit. But I didn't know if you guys had noticed anything that particularly surged forward as a result.
I think that comes down to just what we know as drivers for each car in general. So the Mercedes, just to put that at the forefront of the conversation, has always been a very good FR car that kind of handles very well. In saying that, the downside of it is that it has quite a lot of drag, and it doesn't have as high a top speed without help. So it has a high top speed if you're in a slipstream for a straight, like the Nürburgring, the Dottinger. If you're on a slipstream for that, you can gain a very high top speed, but just by itself, it's not that fast of a car in a straight line.
Bit of a boat,
compared to other cars. Yeah, exactly. Compared to cars like the Supra and the Corvette, that have a lot more torque and a lot more kind of pull behind it. I think we were from the Corvette on the old physics. I'm not sure about from the BOP that they put in there, not the old physics. I think we were about 7 to 8 kilometers down
Wow.
on the Corvette, but in the turns we were much faster than the Corvette, just because it's much more heavy and it doesn't turn as well. So now that these physics kind of lend to the more kind of oversteery side of the cars and whatnot, it did help the Mercedes be much more of a beast in the sector two, where it's much more of like a handling sector, and then just the track in general with Interlagos. Like obviously there's a main straight, and we probably lose half a tenth, maybe a tenth there, just based on power, compared to the Super, maybe tenth and a half compared to the Super. But then we do gain it back in sector two and sector three, like quite a lot, or probably sector one and sector two, sorry. Quite a fair bit more than what we would gain or lose in sector three. So, we gain 4 tenths and we lose a tenth in sector three. So it just kind of lends to the Mercedes being a very kind of handling style front engine car, which, if you play into that more with the new physics, it definitely gave us not the upper hand, but it definitely made me more confident that I could put it more at the front half of the field.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been a staple of GT3 racing for a while now, hasn't it? The Mercedes-AMG GT3. It's a fantastic car, great all rounder, and I suppose it's good to see it sort of bouncing back a little bit. Really, it's a favourite of mine. It doesn't get used as widely as I like to see it because I've always considered it as the staple car since I've started watching racing like that.
So, from the highs of the Manufacturer Series, there was the Nations Cup, and you didn't really have the best time on that one, and you kind of fell victim a little bit to the new tyre physics. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so just what I was saying before, how we had the physics change, and basically every practice we did at home went out the window entirely. The times were half a second faster. We have to kind of send it more and kind of relearn the car. And being in that car, the X319, it's a handful. So now that the car's more responsive under turning, more responsive under brakes, the brake balance actually means something in this game now. It's not just run +5 to get the most rotation on an understeery car. It's if you run +5 and you brake, you're probably going to spin out. So you need to actually do something with the brake balance. So we have to learn all that. We have to learn the strategy. We have to learn how long the soft tires last, just to get a reference point. In the 20 or I think it was 20 or 30 minute practice session we had to go from step one from scratch and learn everything about the car and then figure out a strategy. We have to learn how long the soft tires last, what the best strategy would be, how fast do they go off, and then what kind of lap times you're doing on mediums and softs, and figure out the best kind of strategy for that. So 20 minutes, I guess anyone would say, is not enough time. So that was my kind of bone to pick with how it was. Is that we had all these changes, and basically they give it to us a week before, but then it's, hey, there's new physics and everything you're going to do is going out the window. So I saw in the Manufacturers Cup the kind of alternate strategy that Igor did a 3-stopper and only did one up on the hards. So I thought I'll try and do an alternate strategy. I'm starting in 8th. I qualified 10th and wasn't the greatest last sector on my qualifying lap. I was only down by probably a tenth and a half or 2 tenths at sector 2, and then I think I lost about 4 tenths in the last sector. I just didn't have the confidence to get on the throttle because of the physics and wasn't really used to it. So that put me down in 10th, and then the sprint race was absolutely chaotic. And I had the McLaren F1 for that, which had a lot of top speed. So I was safe on the straights, but it had to brake a bit earlier, and then didn't turn as well. So if I could just keep it behind people and then get to the straight, I was able to pass them there. And then I think I was stuck behind a 4-wide train going into the bus stop at one point, and this is going to end so badly. So I kind of seen that, and I was like, I'm just going to go on the outside as they kind of went a bit wide, all of them. I almost made a quad overtake, which would have been pretty crazy, or I think it was a triple overtake. But yeah, it just ended up being really chaotic, and I started 8th, so that was nice. I moved up 2 positions, wasn't quite at the back of the field. It was kind of more kind of midfield. Starting 8th, and I thought, I'll start on hards, do 1 lap, and try and do like an alternate strategy with an extra stop. With the pit delta being longer than what was at home, it was about 35 seconds, which apparently the company got told it was going to be a bad idea, and they didn't really follow suit or didn't change anything. They're like, yeah, let's just do it. So a 35-second pit loss on a 59-second track, or like I said, kind of minute track, probably wasn't the best idea.
No, we kind of saw it coming with the whole lap to car, because you said there's so many strategies available.
Exactly.
You've got a lap that's a minute long, and you're spending nearly half of that in the pits. We all saw it coming, that there was going to be lap traffic was going to come into play.
Yeah, that's actually what was said to the company from somebody, that they said to them, hey, this is going to be an issue. It's going to be lapped cars. It's going to affect people's races, and I guess it was too late to change because it was already kind of released. But yes, I just kind of went on with it, and it happened anyway. So it wasn't a great look for the competition, but it kind of adds to the excitement of seeing like a bunch of people fight, and then a soft tire runner trying to get through and unlap himself. But yeah, it ended up just being kind of really not great for the race. I had an alternate strategy of doing one lap on the hards and hoping that the soft tire was fast enough over 10 laps to gain that back. It ultimately wasn't, because I realized as I was on my medium tire, I was probably doing because I was at the back, not fighting with people and stuff, just doing laps, working with Robert Heck, being part of my team that I'm in. We're just kind of working together, and our lap times were only at some points were only 2/10 off the fastest lap on soft tires, just because we had clean air and we weren't fighting or anything. And just in general, was just like kind of running the race on the medium tires compared to the softs. So yeah, we were. Well, for me, I was a bit surprised by that and confused that I was only 2 or 3 tenths off the soft times that they were doing. So yeah, that kind of threw my strategy out the window on lap 5 or 6. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stick to it and see what happens, because I had already pitted for the first lap, so I couldn't really go a few extra laps on that. Otherwise, I'd probably lose more time, and I just kind of committed to my strategy, which ultimately was the wrong call, because I thought I'd be able to do 11 laps on the softs. Because in practice we did like a 20-minute practice, and I found out the softs last about 10, 11 laps. On the maximum, it was about 11, maybe 12 laps at maximum. But I think that was just also because we were learning the car and we were going a bit slower. So maybe because we learnt the car, went to the race, got a bit more comfortable with it, we could push faster, which made the tire dead go down a bit faster in general. So that kind of caught me out. It was the 10th lap of my first soft stint that I was like, my tires are about to go dead, but I have to do the extra lap. I have to kind of make the quota. Otherwise, if I can't make 10 laps or 11 laps on my first stint, there's no way in hell I'm going to make 12 laps on the second stint. So I kind of had to do the extra lap and just hope and pray that the tires hold on and I could hold on. Lo and behold, come turn 1, I hit the inside curb, as you would normally, but hit the inside curb just that little too much, kind of clipped the back wheel, and the car just spun around probably faster than what I've ever done in the game ever. So I had no time to catch it, no reactions or anything for that. It was a split second, and it was facing the pit wall basically on the right, and then off the track hit the wall, and because of that slide, my tires went fully red. I had to do a full lap on full red tires, and yeah, that wasn't great. Obviously, with the new physics, it brought it back to how the tire model was maybe 2 years ago, where if you had a full red tire, it would just hit a cliff. And if you were in an MR, you would oversteer like crazy. If you were in an FR, you would understeer like crazy, and you would need to slow down probably 100 to 120 kilometers less than what you would go through a turn just to make the turn. And then if you're in an MR, you need to not steer 30 degrees less to just not spin the car. So the physics have gone back to that, but it's not like a cliff where once it hits 100%, it just happens at a click of a button. It's a very kind of rapid growth of loss of grip and traction, to the point where at the last 2 turns I had to pause the game so the AI takes over, because I couldn't go 20 or 30 kilometers through a turn, otherwise I would just spin. Because obviously with that car being an MR, it just kind of loses the rear end with no tires at the rear, and it happened 3 times, probably about 3 or 4 times throughout the lap, where I just spin because I'm going 50, 60 kilometers and trying to turn, but there's just nothing. It's like I'm just driving on ice with the tires. So that was obviously my big low point for the race. Yeah, I impacted a fair few people's races, which I went up to him after the race and I apologized. I publicly apologized on on Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, and kind of announced that it was my worst performance that I've put in on a GT race probably to this date. So from hero to zero very quickly in the space of 2 hours. So yeah, it wasn't a great result. There was a lot of kind of variables that happened in it where we didn't know strategy. Like at the start when I was doing that kind of walk down, saying, "Hey, it's our guy Barber from Australia," blah blah. I was still thinking like, I don't know the strategy. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I sat in the chair. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this. It sounds good on paper. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Keelan Drummond said something very similar actually live on the stream. He said, "I don't know what the strategy is going to be." To to Jules, sorry.
yeah. There was a fair few players who didn't know, and um, there was my teammate Robert as well, who did the same thing. I think he changed halfway through and realized it wasn't going to work. I didn't change because he pitted on the first lap. I know Angle in the shows that pitted on the first lap. I'm pretty sure to get off the hard tires. So there was 2 or 3 people who did the same thing. I think they all changed halfway through the strategy. I didn't, and I just kind of committed and paid the price for it. Where spun out a fair few times. I hit. Well, I didn't purposely hit him, but I spun out on track, and they were just kind of there and on the racing line. I really had nowhere to go. So I apologize to all those people again for that. I think I hit Killian, I hit Miyazono, I hit Kai, and then because I was a lapped car as well on soft tires, and like I think it was second or third down to 6th were fighting, and I was like at the back of them and I was trying to get past because I'm on soft tires. That I gave Gallo damage just because I was caught out by the speed difference of him being on a worn set of mediums and me on brand new softs. Yeah, I got caught out by that, and I hit him at the rear. I just didn't think there would be much speed difference. Just because most of the time it's a flat out turn on hards, mediums, or softs. That happened, and then he spun out about 3 or 4 turns later, down at turn 6 at the bottom of the hill. And I was like, oh damn, because I saw on my screen that I got damage from hitting him, and I was like, I really hope I didn't get damage, and well, I hope that I didn't give him damage. Because he was probably in the fight for the win or a podium in general. And then he spun out a few corners later, and I was like, oh, I can't be like, I didn't have any words at the time. I was just like, oh no. I spoke to him after the race, and he said it wasn't my fault. Like he spun just himself in general, and then apparently he spun again later in the race, and he was all good with it. So I'm happy that that I'm not kind of public enemy number one in a way.
I mean, Drummond
yeah,
span at the same corner as well. He came out of the pits, cold tires, and span at the same place. So it just seemed to be one of those things that, like the new tyre heating and cooling and the new suspension physics with the weight transfer and everything just seemed to be catching everyone out ever so slightly. So
exactly.
Like, hard on yourself.
That turn 6, I believe it is, or turn 5. That's a very tough turn to get right, because you have to go on the throttle early to get as much time as you can for that, like the qualifying lap or just to push in general. But if you get on the throttle too early with too much rotation in the car, there's a very fine line between going fast and oversteering, but then there's a lot of room to go slower on the turn and lose like 2 or 3 tenths, but then still make the turn. So
and there's a penalty if you go too far out to the right as well, just there.
Exactly. So us kind of pro drivers are trying to find that perfect line where we either gain 2 tenths on the person in front, or we only lose half a tenth or a tenth to the person in front. So there's a fine line we're trying to do every lap, and you just step over it one time and you're basically in the wall facing the tire barrier. So it's definitely made that car a lot more difficult, which will be like a learning curve for, I think, the general player base when they get back into it. Obviously, the pro drivers know what they're doing with it and they can adapt very fast, but I think the general player base will take a fair bit longer to get used to it and get the most out of the car.
I mean, you described it on a post. I think it was on your Discord, possibly. You described it as being a puncture, and obviously it's not a puncture, but it gives the impression of a tyre that has just gone. There's nothing left in it. That
Yeah,
last 10% is now basically almost unusable.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's just what the community called it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, just as like a word to put on it. So obviously the tire doesn't blow out, but there's nothing left in it. It's basically like if you go on a full wet track and chuck on a set of softs and slicks. You're just going nowhere, and you're driving on ice. You're wheel spinning. You're spinning out. Yeah, it's basically everything that shouldn't happen with a car happens. So yeah, it's basically like driving on ice. So, but that also happens. So with the new tire model, it happens when it's about 90% or so. Whereas with the other one, the older tire model a few years ago, where we had the same thing, it happened when you at like 100%, where you lost the last pixel of white on the tire wear. Um, so it happens more now at 90 to 95%, where you have a lot less grip. Like there's still grip there, but you need to be probably 10 times more aware and 10 times more kind of reactive to the oversteer and understeer that you get. So yeah, it happens at like a very kind of earlier time, but it happens more rapidly that you're like, hey, you're losing grip and all that stuff. If you don't pit now, then you're going to be in severe trouble.
Yeah.
For the next lap, as per what I found out.
It's more
So
of like a progressive sort of warning shot, isn't it? Like there's
exactly.
there's a window to it now, rather than it going right. That's your 100%. Bang! You've suddenly got no grip. It sort of it does have a cliff to it, but it could be anywhere within that window.
Yeah. I think it gives the players more kind of time to realize like, hey, this is the maximum I can do.
Yeah.
So it tells us in practice now. So when I do practice for round two, assuming we're using X2019 again, just because they like that car in general.
Yeah.
But just for any car in general, it'll tell us like, hey, this is a lap that you're going to lose all your grip on. If you save well, you can push for another lap, but that's also a risk. If you don't save, you may have to do a lap earlier. So it gives us that kind of benchmark now for future races that we can kind of see and be like, this is where it's going to go wrong if we keep going, and this is our kind of optimal lap to pit on, for the times and all that stuff. But then again, like for the Group 3 races, for the manufacturers, the front tires went out for the AMG a lot faster than the rears, but there was also probably 15 to 20% left where our times would be slower than the hards. So again, there's no point in kind of running around on soft tires just because you're on soft thinking you're going faster, but your times are slower than what you would be for a new hard. So it's a lot easier to not get to that point of spinning out and kind of understanding where your car doesn't turn for the Group 3s than it would be for an X2019, just because the car is so quick and it wears the dig out so much.
Yeah.
And so fast as well. So it's different with the Group 3s. We have a bit of a safe zone for that where we can kind of see it earlier. But for the faster cars, like probably next round for the TGR, obviously that's on the older physics, but if that's on the new physics, it's the SF23 at Spain. Yeah. So if we were on the new physics and we had that combo, we would probably have that kind of lap and that window to see, hey, this is where it's all going to go wrong, but we need to also take it easy kind of thing. So yeah, there's definitely a spot for the Group 3s and there's a lot less time for the faster cars.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Guy. It's been fantastic to get an insight into the entire GT World Series event and obviously your thoughts and the way that you processed it and the new physics as well. It's been lovely to see it all come together, so we thank you very much for your time. Is there anyone or anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up here?
I just want to say thanks to my team that have supported me through it. My new team, not distinct now, as everyone knows me as Outplayed Racing. Thanks to the people who picked me to support me in the race. Obviously, I didn't get the result that those people wanted to get your free million credits in the game, but hopefully for round two, now that I know where I went wrong, hopefully now I can figure out where to go right and get on the podium. Hopefully can see me on the podium this year. It would be nice for myself and for the people who support me, and also for my country, for Team AMG as well, and for Australia. It would be nice. So thanks to everyone who supported me, and hope to see everyone in round two with some new faces coming in as well, and hope to do a bit better of a result for you guys.
Yeah.
Smash
Thanks,
Better luck in Prague and Tokyo, which will be nearer to your own time zone. So
Yeah, it's definitely not been a great trip over there. I think it was about a 15-hour flight on the way back, and after about 10 hours, so, but it's all worth it. It makes it all worth it, to be up at this level. That's like, if that's the sacrifice I've got to make to be up at this level, then it's fine. To see everyone from across different countries and around the world, all different friends that I've made in this game, definitely makes it all worth it.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck. Thank you very much for joining us once again, Guy. And we'll have to organise a 1v1 in Rocket League so I can see what a save piling down the side of my screen at some point. But thank you very much again, mate, for joining us. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the interview, and we'll hopefully see you again very, very soon on GT Planet.